die. Swing those hips around, can't stop, won't back down. My ladies, short, tall, thin or wide, always down and ready to ride.
Okay, let's speak a little bit more about other major global issues. We're into geo-economic confrontation, become the #1 global risk. World Economic Forum identifies geo-economic confrontation, countries weaponizing trade, finance, supply chains. The World Economic Forum, it makes this a major upfront issue. And then we're looking at extreme weather and climate volatility rising again. The weather is I won't say it's crazy, but the change is due to human intervention, or whether it's just a natural occurring phenomenon. I think that's very much uncertain. But clearly we're looking at climate volatility rising again. We're looking at social polarization increasing worldwide. We see economic stress, misinformation, political division. This is on the rise. We see misinformation and disinformation surging, whether it's due to AI-driven content, political manipulation, declining trust in institutions. Clearly, all of these things have an impact. We have AI, artificial intelligence, anxiety, and technological disruption. AI is expanding, it's getting better, but public anxiety and regulatory uncertainty are rising sharply. AI is probably one of the major issues coming through the system right now. It leads to how long is it going to be before AI starts to replace people's jobs and careers? Probably, if AI keeps improving, within 10 years, we're going to see a major decline in jobs and careers. I remember back in the 50s and 60s, people could get a job, and that job would pretty much be guaranteed for their life, a lifetime position, especially in the automobile industry, where today people are, I don't think most people are in a career. They're in a job, and if the job lasts 5 years, 10 years, I think they're lucky. Technology is changing so quickly that an engineer in any discipline in 5 years is probably working with outdated information. And probably it's in 2.5 years, engineers who have graduated in 2.5 years past that graduation point, the data they're working with is probably obsolete. At least it's of declining importance or accuracy. I have an engineer friend, and he's constantly taking upgrade courses. And he recently retired, and he was the director of engineering for his company, and he was constantly taking upgraded courses. and his company gave him nothing. They kept him employed. He has no retirement package, no benefits package, but he kept his job. But he never expected to call it a career. In other words, I look at as a job as a month-to-month, year-to-year thing. I look at a career as being 10, 20 years in length. But in any case, so AI is going to make a lot of changes. And then I ask the question, when people graduate from university and or college, I believe they expect that they're going to find a job or a career. Well, with AI, is this going to be a reality, or are they going to be part of the unemployed masses? AI is going to change everything. And if humanity, if people don't have something to do, if they don't have a job or a career, then what are they going to do with their time? And I'm not going to make a suggestion, but I think one of the options is not positive. So, yes, AI is going to make a contribution, probably a massive contribution in terms of our technology and how we create things. But if it removes jobs and careers from people, then another problem's created. I don't know, makes you think. So let's talk about, briefly, energy market instability due to the Middle East conflict. Well, allegedly, about 20% of the world's oil supply passes through the Strait of Hormuz. As we discussed in a prior podcast, maybe one or two ago, there are options, expensive options, create new pipelines that avoid the Strait of Hormuz. There are options, and I have to be careful. We all have thoughts and considerations as to how religion interacts with the world, and I have a lot of profound thoughts, and I would like to use a lot of profanity when I speak of Iran. But I heard that VP Vance was meeting with one of the Iranian diplomats in Switzerland today, and that already there are existing problems, and that this conflict probably is going to continue in some capacity. I hear now the Strait of Hormuz has been blocked again by Iran. I don't think the world can be held hostage by this religious regime of ayatollahs in Iran. I don't think the world can allow this to continue. I hope that's polite enough. Like I say, if YouTube wouldn't block me, I'd use some real good profanity, but I can't do it. In any case, it's been stated publicly, I hope it's been accurate, that President Trump has been advised to finish this conflict, finish it. Stop trying to get compliance from Iran, because in the last 70 years, Iran has never been compliant, and they've never been good for their word. They've never been trustworthy. So let's just get on with it finish this nonsense and get things back to an operational position. Do I believe that? Yes, I do. I do. Until we move from oil dependence, we need to stop this nonsense with Iran. It looks like the majority of the Middle Eastern nations, oil-producing nations, are tired of Iran and they want to get on with things. And Iran, from what we're told, being the major supplier of finances for global unrest, such as Hezbollah, and Iran apparently having in their mandate to destroy Israel at all costs. We need to stop this. And if Iran wants to continue, we need to isolate them, remove all of their weaponry, and let their leadership, which I can't even believe, let their leadership kill all their people. Apparently, in the last 90 days or so, the Iranian National Guard or Republican Guard has killed 85,000 Iranian citizens. I'm not there. I don't know if this is true, but this is some of the numbers I've seen on social media. If it's true, it's insanity, and I don't know why the rest of the world is allowing this. This is nearing genocide. This is not right in any case. So we're looking at financial instability in developing economies, especially in South America. We're looking at supply chain restructuring and localization, which is a major issue, but it is a global issue, and it can be resolved. And I think right now we're speaking about Canada looking to come to an agreement with Europe, Asia, the Middle East, on Canada being a partner to supply resources to these nations, and stopping our dependency with the U.S. I think it's probably a good thing. Just like investing in the stock market. Most good investors, they don't invest everything into one stock. They diversify. I think the same thing Canada needs to do with our options. We need to reduce the dependence, maybe not stop it, but reduce the dependence on the U.S. and start looking to the European Union, Asia, Middle East, and creating new partners. I think it's a good thing. And then we're looking at the persistent geopolitical volatility driven by the U.S., China, EU dynamics. It's a huge topic. So let's talk a little bit about NORAD. Most of us have been following, to some extent, what's going on with NORAD. Again, if the data is correct, Spain has refused the U.S. using American-built and financially supported military bases in Spain. Apparently, most of the European nations have made restrictions to the U.S. using American bases, again, built by and supported by the U.S. Apparently, the U.K. has allowed limited access to their bases to the U.S. Now, clearly, we as the public are only told what governments want to tell us. At one time, in the past, I worked for a branch of NORAD and had a top secret clearance. And what was occurring where I worked was not released to the public. It was, I wouldn't say it was secret, it was just what we did was not released to the public. And we were under constraints about what we could say. My experience with this branch of NORAD was quite some time ago. And I believe the experience and knowledge I have now of this branch of NORAD, it probably doesn't have any value to anyone now. It's probably my commitment to this secret knowledge probably has no value. I probably could do a podcast on what I know and experience, but I have to check with a lawyer first, just to be absolutely sure. But we are told in 2026 that Trump is or has said or implied that the U.S. dependence on NORAD is going to be reduced or eliminated. I believe that. I believe President Trump is just a human being like the rest of us, and I believe that it's human nature. If you do me wrong, I'm probably going to, if the opportunity presents itself, I'm going to get my pound of flesh. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying the U.S. is paid for, built, and from what I've read, spends billions of dollars in each European nation where it has bases, and now it can't use them when it needs to. So I believe President Trump, even though he's potentially in office for 2 more years, I believe if VP Vance becomes the president after Trump leaves office, or whomever it is, that they're going to remember that when the U.S. needed to use the bases in Europe, that they were restricted and denied. So I believe the U.S. will remember this, and that Europe is going to pay a price down the road, if not now. So is NORAD ending? No, it's not. But it is NORAD, you can debate it. NORAD is the U.S. And I believe most European leaders would agree in private, they'll never say it publicly, that without the U.S., NORAD is dead. It means nothing. Nothing at all. And I'm sure Putin and Xi Jinping of China, I'm sure they're quite happy to see the NORAD kind of fall into disarray. But I can see President Trump and the U.S. is now looking at expanding NORAD. Well, maybe it won't be called NORAD, but I can see the U.S. expanding their commitment to Japan, to the South China Sea, to the Philippines, to Australia, and to the Middle Eastern allies, oil-producing nations. So the U.S. potentially will be reducing their troops to Europe and to their military, their aircraft and so forth, and making new bases in these other areas. Again, it's not to say that NORAD's dead, but Trump has said that European nations who are not contributing 5% of their GNP to their defense, that the U.S. is not going to be there for them if something happens. I agree with Trump. European nations, they have a huge GNP. So get with a plan, spend 5%, and start to develop your military. Stand on your own. This isn't the end of World War II. We're past that. We need to move forward, and European needs to stand up, because if they don't, Putin's going to be standing at their doorstep or standing under the Eiffel Tower again. It's going to happen. If Putin, in my opinion, is a megalomaniac, he's a warmonger. He wants the Soviet Union to expand, or Russia to become the old Soviet Union and expand. He wants this. And if he sees a weak Europe and a divisive NORAD, he's potentially going to start to expand. And will he use more than conventional? Yeah. I don't see him going into another 4 or 5 year conventional conflict, as he's tied up now in the Ukraine. He's going to do it. If he wants Europe, he's going to go to nuclear, thermal, biological. He's not going to sit in another conventional war for 4 or 5 years. He's not going to do it. So NATO, is it ending? No, but there's going to be changes. I think there's no doubt. It's just like Canada. Apparently, we are pushing to contribute 5% of our GNP towards our own defense. Okay, fine. But we need to do something. Without the U.S., I have to be careful, not rude to alienate 4 or 5 people, but without the U.S., things as they are now are not going to continue. Not going to happen. Let's just go a little more like Hemingway. He can write a book on smoking a cigar. Let's talk a little bit about NORAD. NORAD, back in the late 40s, 50s, they were designed with the technology at the time to detect Soviet bombers coming primarily over the pole, to track missiles, to monitor the Arctic. But today, and I do know about things in the Arctic from my time with working in a branch of NORAD. But today, the world is using hypersonic glide vehicles, low-flying cruise missiles, autonomous drones, my, cyber attacks, space-based threats. I mean, the U.S. has a branch of the military called space defense, space military. I'm sorry, I forget the exact name, but there is a branch of the U.S. military that is defined by space operations. In any case, the old DEW line, distant early warning, I don't think it has much value anymore. I understand that they're using over the horizon radar now, which is not just LOS, line of sight. The U.S. is using satellites that can detect launches of weapons. So the DEW line has no value. There was another line between south the DEW line called the Pine Tree line. It really never took effect. It was there, but it didn't do much. So there's a lot going on. And will NORAD continue as it is? No. But will NORAD continue? Probably. But I think that Canada and Europe, they're going to have to stand up on their own. And we're going to have to stop depending on the U.S. I would probably make a wager on that one. And then we have to speak a little bit about the Arctic. I hear that part of the latest controversy is related to who owns the icebergs off of Newfoundland or off of the east coast of Canada, because that's all fresh water, which I find very interesting, and I don't know the answer. Who does own the icebergs off the east coast of Canada? It's a lot of fresh water there. And then we get into the resources in the Arctic. And I believe Canada has one ship that can handle Arctic ice, but I don't know if it's that good. I didn't do a lot of research on that one. But in any case, apparently the Soviets are watching the Arctic, and now with the somewhat warming climate, there's thoughts that there's going to be an Arctic passage that's open for a longer period of time, which will reduce trade between the west and the east coast of Canada in those different areas. So there's a lot going on in the Arctic, and it brings up the question of, if the U.S. isn't watching things, will the Soviets make claim to the Arctic more than they're entitled to? Hard to know. So NORAD's, I think the U.S. is called the Space Force. I think that's what it's called. They're military in the space. So if I was Hemingway, we could do a couple books on NORAD, but I think the point is NORAD's probably going to change, and Europe's going to have to get with it, as is Canada. We're going to have to start to stand up and not depend on the U.S. Okay. Let's have a look. Let's talk for a moment about Antarctica. And this brings up a lot of points. Some of these points are crazy. Other are really interesting. So let's talk about what's going on in Antarctica. So you might remember back in the, I can't give it if it was the late 40s or early 50s, the Admiral Byrd took a U.S. expedition down to Antarctica. I believe he took down 40 ships, 20 ships, and I think it was 20,000 military troops, and allegedly it was just to do Arctic cold weather training, but there's a lot of thought that they actually went down after World War II to explore the communications between Germany and what they thought was Germany setting up a remote base or an extended nation in Antarctica. They wanted to explore this. Well, let's see if I can find it. I made some notes here. Give me a second. Let me find my notes. It was Richard Byrd, and he was down there in 1946, 1947. He was the commander of Operation High Jump. He was the leader of 13 ships, 4,700 personnel. There was aircraft carriers, destroyers, submarines, and aircraft. Apparently, this was one of the largest Antarctic explorations ever mounted. Officially, it was said to be training, cold weather operations, establishing a research base, testing equipment, asserting U.S. presence after World War II. Nothing in the official documentation mentions extraterrestrials or anything that was suspected not created on Earth. The alien component came from conspiracy theorists, not from the Navy. Some of the myths say that Byrd encountered flying saucers. His fleet was attacked. He retreated quickly. And apparently he reported enemy aircraft that could fly pole to pole. That is some of the conspiracy theories talk. But the quote about aircraft flying pole to pole from a Chilean newspaper interview that was heavily paraphrased and later distorted. Why people think that something actually did happen was because Byrd left really quickly. But the official record says he left because of harsh weather, equipment failures, accidents, logistical issues, and apparently several aircraft were lost, and there were whiteout conditions, mechanical problems, and the Navy kept most of this classified. And even today, from what I can find out, Byrd's trip to Antarctica back in '47, it has not been released, which is really interesting. We're talking, nearly 80 years after that point. In any case, okay, let me jump around a bit. So even today, the majority of people, or let's flip that, almost no one can get permission to visit Antarctica. You have to have permission from one of the major nations, and that brings up an issue of why. If person X has the money, why can't you go down? Apparently there are ships that take people, but they don't actually get off the ship, and they stay on the ship. So it's kind of an extension, but they're not actually walking on Antarctica. So what's really going on? So I made a couple of notes. Admiral Byrd did lead a fairly massive U.S. naval expedition to Antarctica. He did not report alien technology or extraterrestrial encounters. The alien story allegedly is a myth built on misinterpretation and secrecy. Well, why has the U.S. not come out and fully given access to all of the data which happened? They haven't. They have not done it. Why not? I mean, what happened 80 years ago? So in any case. So let's talk a little bit about the US allegedly already has bases on the moon and Mars. Go to social media and you can find some of these so-called insiders, whistleblowers. They have stories. Well, I have stories too, having worked for a branch of NORAD. And do I know about things? I do. I do. And the story the public is given about UFOs is not totally true. So whether the US has fully occupied bases on the moon and Mars now is interesting. And everything that comes out is not a conspiracy. It's not. It simply is not. I read one or watched one video on this very well, highly known, and I would say respected scientist, and he made the statement that if we, the public, or we, the world, knew the technology that the US has from reverse engineering some of these crafts, that we would just shake our head in amazement. And the counterpart to that for me is, if this is true, which it might be, then why is Elon Musk and SpaceX and NASA still continuing with this solid fuel and liquid fuel rocketry technology? If we have anti-gravity and we can control gravity, then why is NASA continuing to use rockets? That part makes no sense to me. And I don't see Elon or Bezos and his Blue Origin, or the Chinese, well, okay, maybe the Chinese, but I don't see Bezos and Elon's and NASA spending all these resources on rockets if we have anti-gravity devices. I don't see it. It doesn't make sense to me. Unless the US, they're saying that the Skunk Works and some of these other top secret developing companies, that they're just not releasing this technology, which I find strange, but maybe. In any case, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I believe everything we hear has a basis. There probably is some truth to some components of this conversation. Probably is. Let's speak just briefly about some of these black budget aircraft and classified satellites and these secret hypersonic programs and stealth programs. Well, we've all heard of a bolt, a nut and bolt, costing NASA $10,000. Well, that's gone before congressional and Senate hearings for an explanation, because this is taxpayer money. But there is no answer, because the nut and bolt may cost $10, but the rest of the funds are going to these secret projects. There is something going on. And from what I know firsthand, I was there, I saw it, I experienced it when I was working with this one branch of NORAD, that there is more. Anyway, so it's interesting to think that, I mean, if you look at some of these videos of things moving on the moon, and when the American astronauts were on the moon, apparently they saw things. I don't believe everybody lies. I don't. So we've got a lot of information. Some of it's grounded in truth. The US, as with most other major nations like Russia and China, they have to keep their technological developments in secret. They have to, or at least they have to try, like Area 51 or Groom Lake in the US. I get it. So there are probably things going on, but we will never know. The public will never know what's really going on. Let's speak just a little bit. I don't want to keep this going for too long. Is why the U.S. is struggling in Iraq. I believe the U.S. could take control of Iraq in one day if they wanted to, but it's going to get messy. It means American boots on the ground. There's going to be a lot of civilian casualties. It's going to be a mess, and the infrastructure of Iran will probably be destroyed, and it's going to be difficult. But does this need to occur? The world can't be held hostage by these Iran Ayatollahs. Can't continue. And if the numbers are correct, that the Iranian National Guard has killed 80,000 of their own people because of political unrest, this can't be allowed to continue either. This is genocide, or form of it. The U.S. has total military superiority in air, on ground, in naval terms. It's just Trump and this administration their hands are somewhat tied by political unrest back in America. I mean, look what happened in Vietnam. Those who were in Vietnam came back to America, and the public spit on them. I mean, spit on them. They were never given recognition. So if we put boots on the ground, which probably has to happen in Iran, it's going to get dirty back home. Trump's not worried about it per se because he's not running for another term. But as with all of these democracies, the Republicans want to get back into power. Vance or Rubio wants to be the next president. And if things get too messy, there's probably going to be a resurgence of the Democratic Party, and the Republicans are going to take a hit. But I believe that most of the planet, would agree that this situation with Iran has to stop. And I don't know why NORAD nations or other nations didn't get involved. Apparently they want to get involved now that the situation is mostly resolved. Big deal, right? That's what Trump says. Yeah, help. I don't need your help now. We've kind of brought things to a close. So it's still messy. I don't think Iran, under this call it administration, under this leadership, I don't think it can be trusted. I believe the people of Iran, like the police, the people of most other nations, they want to be free. They want to live a nice life. They don't want war. But when you get a crazy leadership like in Iran, they don't care about their population. They don't care. They just want to remain in power and do their religious thing. Is that okay? So I'm going to bring this to a close. There's a lot going on in the world. The problem for me is trying to determine what's real. Social media, you log on to YouTube or Facebook or any other media source, and the information is just it's crazy. They don't agree, and what they do agree in, they exaggerate it. I wouldn't watch the past major news networks like NBC, ABC, CBS, CNN. They're so politically biased. They would call day night and night day. They're crazy. I remember when I was young, you depended on the 6 o'clock news for local, 6:30 news for international. Newspapers, you depended on it to get another perspective. Today, there's basically no newspapers. The major news broadcasts are nonsense. Look what they did. I think it was Brian Williams. He was replaced by Lester Holt. And was that on ABC? Okay. Well, it was on one of the major networks. They found Brian Williams of exaggerating his Iraq war experience, I believe it was. I believe that's true. And they removed him. You just can't depend on these newscasts. I wouldn't watch ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN if you paid me. It's just all garbage. In any company that puts advertising money into these networks, you're nuts. Nobody with 2 brain cells watch this garbage. But then again, what do you depend on? Where do you get your news from? My understanding is BBC is relatively unbiased. I don't know if it is, but the social media news is all over the map. And then if you watch President Trump on Truth or Truth Social. I believe that's exactly from President Trump. I know I've been on X, and X alleges to be a free, open media source, and I have to be careful. It's not. I've made statements on X, and I come back the next day and my account's gone. And I don't use profanity. I don't use four-letter words or any vulgar terms. I don't attack anyone. I speak in generalities. And I come back the next day and my account's gone. So I'm assuming there's AI bots on X, and they pick out something and your account's deleted. I don't know if there's human beings on X who are watching the commentary, but for some reason, if you expend an opinion and it goes against something, your account's deleted. So I don't understand that. I know when because we were a class going through training to be working in this component of NORAD, we went through some documentation or orientation towards what was expected and what the requirements were and what other nations were trying to accomplish. And after this indoctrination, call it that, students always came up with this analogy. We're all like mushrooms. We're kept in the dark and they throw SHIT on us, which is pretty much the truth. The point of that is we, the public, are told what the governments want us to know. Not the truth, what they want us to know. And that in itself is alarming. And I don't see it's going to get better. I think it's okay to say, did a podcast on home invasion, and I'll be very general. There was a police chief, his department charged a homeowner who I believe was a legal gun owner. This person or persons broke into this home. The legal gun owner shot, didn't kill, but shot one or both of the people breaking in, and the homeowner was arrested. And I believe Doug Ford said something to the extent of, again, I have it on the podcast. It's public record, and there was an outrage, and the police chief of this department came out. Again, it's all public record. The police chief came out and said, "Oh well, we have to rescind this. We can't charge the homeowner." Do you think? I don't know anybody that's got two brain cells who potentially in a scenario are in their home at night, maybe not even night being a condition. They're in their home, the mom and dad, maybe a couple of children, daughter, son, and a couple of wackos are going to break into your house, and worst case scenario, they're going to rob the family, rape them, kill them, that you can't defend yourself and you're going to be charged by the police? I've never heard anything like it in my life. And in that podcast, I made the recommendation that Canada needs to adopt the castle law like in the US. In general terms, a home in the US is your castle. If someone breaks into your home in the US, in general terms, I believe this is in most states, if not every state, someone breaks into your home and you protect yourself, there's no charges. I won't go and say the word KILL or anything, but if someone breaks into your home, you're allowed to protect your home, your family, and that's legal. Where in Canada, the cops are going to charge the homeowner for defending his family or her family. I mean, I don't know. I just find this pure insanity. In any case, I think the point being is there's a lot of problems out there, and we as Canadians don't seem to complain. Like in the last podcast I put together, we need to do something for our senior citizens. Our senior citizens built Canada. Look out the door. It wasn't built by people under 20 years old. It was built by our moms and dads and uncles and aunts and their parents and so on. They paid the taxes. They built it. Look out your window. You didn't build it. Our parents did. The seniors. And we need to step up as Canadians and support our seniors. We have to stop taxing them. We have to give them $5,000 a month every month. $60,000 a year. They're not going to run out and buy Bentleys or Lincolns or they're just surviving. They're not going to be able to travel the world. They're not going to take yacht trips all over, but $60,000 a year for each senior lets them live with some dignity. And if there's any senior watches my last podcast and my comments now, if you don't agree with me, what more do you want? OAS and CPP maxes out at under $25,000 a year. Not a month, a year. And as my friend Danny, he wants to nickel and dime everything. I think it's 24,700 and change. It's not 25. So every senior at maximum OAS and CPP does not receive $25,000 a year. That's ridiculous. Every senior citizen deserves to live with a little bit of dignity and a bit of respect. Our government is spending, okay, I don't have access to the exact numbers, but I'm going to make a guesstimate that our government is spending billions, possibly trillions, in supporting NATO and helping Ukraine and other countries. Can we not come up with enough money to pay our senior citizens, the people who built this DAMN country, $5,000 a month? I'm old. I would enjoy running for PM. I mean, being the head of a party. And my platform would be founded on respect to seniors. $5,000 a month, get rid of OAS and CPP. Every senior, whether the age is 60, 65, or I've heard 70 and 72, every senior receives $5,000 a month. And no taxes. Let the younger generation pay. Why should seniors be paying school tax? They paid a lifetime of school tax. If seniors have have some savings in RIFs and TIFs and RRSPs, then God bless them. Nevertheless, every senior receives $5,000 a month. And if they have $1 million in stocks and bonds and mutual funds, perfectly acceptable. No problem at all. And if they have 10 million in stocks and bonds and mutual funds, perfectly acceptable. They're senior citizens, they get $5,000 a month. No questions. And no tax. I think we need to reward people who invest and save and plan for their future. And if someone puts aside 10 or 20 or 50 million or more, we don't penalize them. We don't kill them in tax. They were entrepreneurs. They have a gift. They have profound education. They developed something. They built something. They're entitled to $5,000 a month. Plain and simple. No questions asked. And no tax. We've got millions of people in Canada who are, I don't think I'm going to be penalized for saying this. We have millions and millions of people in Canada who are cheating the support system. They're fraudsters. They're stealing from the taxpayer. They're misrepresenting their position. And the government seems to say, okay, well, go ahead. We don't care. If the government even eliminated the scams and frauds purported against our support system, we probably could pay seniors $5,000 a month. It wouldn't impact anyone. And this nonsense about home invasion, about people breaking into your home and potentially robbing you, potentially raping your family, in a worst case scenario, killing you and your family, to have the police come along and charge you, I don't know. If I say what I want, YouTube will ban me forever. It's insanity. Is there not some constitutional lawyer like Mr. Greenspan? I don't know if the gentleman's still alive. I know him. But I believe at the end of his legal career, he was dealing with constitutional issues. I hope that's okay to say. I don't think it's derogatory. But is there not someone else or some other group that can, fast track this home castle law? I mean, are we going to allow the police to charge the homeowner for defending his home and family? Well, right now, the cops are charging the homeowner. And I think our society is SCREWING, the seniors. The seniors don't have a combined forum. We need to. We need one. Whether it's unions expanding their representation, seniors in Canada need to come together and vote as a group, because until we do that, we will get nothing. You remember when COVID was here a few years back? Everybody got something. Companies got, I believe it was 40,000 to keep working, to keep employees going. What do seniors get? As always, seniors get screwed over. We need to make changes. Canada's a good country, but we need change. And I think there's ample ground for some party to come along and create a platform on supporting seniors and stopping welfare fraud. We need that. We need it now. And this elected officials running across the floor, we need to know, are they being paid to run across the floor? Are they being enticed by the party they're running to give them major positions in government? I mean, what they're doing when they cross the floor is telling their electorate to go themselves, and they're changing the whole component of the Canadian democratic system. You take a minority government that's, say, 2, 3, 4 votes short of a majority, you have 4 or 5 people run across the floor. Now they're a majority and their will is more or less unbreakable. That's not what we voted for. So there's a lot going on. And this conspiracy thought, is it real? I believe people say things and it's founded in truth. I believe that. And there is a foundation for these conspiracy thoughts. Sure, some people are coming out and making statements just for the notoriety, the exposure. I believe that. But still, there's probably a foundation of truth to build these conspiracies on. In any case, okay, I've done enough today. I'm experimenting with a bunch of changes, but I'm trying. I'm trying to add new things and do different things in each podcast. And while my podcasts are SHIT, I'm working alone, and the software's a son of a gun to work with. It doesn't want to work as easy as you'd like, and there's a lot to it. I look at a really, really great, I guess it's a podcast or a live audio podcast. It's 77 WABC out of New York, I believe. It's great. I could only hope to reach 20% of their excellence. They're absolutely phenomenal. They're the president, the vice president, secretary of state. They have governors. I mean, they have major people, but they also have, technicians and technical support, and they have access to all these paid video and audio links. I don't, and most podcasters don't. You have to pay a premium to get access to real live music and video feeds. You have to pay. I don't have the funds for that. Well, maybe I do, but I'm not going to use them right now. But WABC is fabulous. If any of you people have an internet radio, listen to 77 WABC. It's great. It's actually enjoyable. I mean, there's so many music Anyway, it's just great, and they're the best. And I'm at the opposite end of the spectrum, but I'm experimenting and trying to do better. And even though, as Jeff said, it's all CRAP, so I made a commitment to do 52 of these, 1 week minimum a year, and now I'm told that I need to go 4 or 5. I don't know if I'll be alive now. Okay, what the heck? I find them easier to do, and I'm becoming better with the hardware and software. A little less stressful, but in any case. Okay, everybody, enjoy the trek back into winter. We're on day 1 of that fun thought, and if you feel like getting your winter coats and stuff out, then maybe time. We're 6 months early, but why not? Bye, everybody. I'm not going to dance this week. Why? I've got no music. I'm adding the music and the green screen backgrounds later. So if I start dancing now, of course, like Jeff said, my dancing looks like I'm riding a motorcycle. In any case, no dancing this week because I'm doing the podcast on a green screen. Then I'm going into another software package where I add the audio and video. Okay, see how it works. Probably another screw up. Peace, everybody. As Ringo says, peace. It certainly seems to be changing. Whether this weather